Micah's my brother.
So why did Susie inspire you?
She inspired me because she's a very strong woman. She's a great mother, obviously a great wife, and her faith is amazing. She totally trusts in God and totally wants His will.
One of the things that inspires me most about the whole publication of the book is Susan's complete trust in God and yes to Him. I think, first of all, she had a very unique experience, but so often when we do have a tragedy that we've gone through or anything that's so big like that, we just kind of keep it to ourselves and to the immediate family. And I'm so impressed with Susan at her saying yes to God, to not just keeping it at that level, but taking this whole experience that really was so difficult and beautiful at the end, but very, very challenging, and that she was willing to go through that pain again as she put it all on paper, and then each time that she had to edit it and everything. And so many obstacles came along the way, but she kept with it. She really believed God wanted her to share this story, and so she continued to pray and find the strength to keep going and doing it for 4 years plus. And finally, she's done it, and it's here. And it's just, I'm so proud of her for her willingness to do this, and for her willingness to let this be something that everybody can learn from and grow from and be touched by.
It took about 3 years to write, and I have to say, about any story, you never want to find yourself in a sad situation, and this story would be a very sad, heartbreaking story if there were not hope involved. And that's what this story is, and that's what I would hope people would gain, would be hope when they're in a tough situation, to understand that if they look to God, who is the author of all stories, that they would see the plan, or at least trust when they don't see the plan, and know that He will bring them to, if not a happy ending, then a peaceful ending.
I was offering a class at St. Joseph's Bread of Life for expectant mothers. It was an 8-week class, and we were focusing on aligning our pregnancy and delivery of our children to Christ's Paschal mystery. And I think Susan first had plans that she was going to take part in the class, and then the diagnosis came of John Michael's chromosomal disorder. And I think she and Steve, she wasn't so sure she wanted to do it first, and she ultimately decided to join the class, which I was very grateful for, because I think there were 6 or 7 other expectant mothers in the class, and we knew it would be incredibly hard for Susan to be there, because, for the most part, we're taking for granted that we're going to be delivering healthy children, or children that will survive, healthy or not. And everyone knew the reality of Susan's situation, and what a gift she was to the class, because she brought a whole other dynamic to the weeks we were together. And I think 2 things. I think first is that she was such an example to us of the Blessed Mother, because she knew she was carrying this child whom she loved dearly, and our prayer for her was that she would be able to hold him and look into his eyes. But she knew that there was great suffering ahead if that even came to fruition. And so she could really understand and bring such a different mindset and a different vision and a different perspective to the class. What we were trying to do, and just the whole notion of redemptive suffering and suffering with Christ for a greater good, and not wasting any of the suffering. And boy, she had suffering like we could never imagine. So that was just a beautiful thing that she brought, and the insight she had. I remember specifically one thing she said. It was just when they had first gotten the diagnosis, and she struggled with wanting her privacy and dealing with this grief privately, and somebody had, maybe in some way she perceived at that moment, maybe violated that privacy of just like coming to see her when she wanted to be alone. And she said she then realized how much it was like the Blessed Mother, that when she delivered Christ in this little stable the last thing she wanted were all these strangers to show up, and here they came. You know, the shepherds came in, and it was at that moment she realized that this child wasn't for her, this child was for everybody. And I think for Susan that was a realization that John Michael was for everybody. And I think truly he was, because he touched every one of us. And we used to just say in the class, like, these little babies that were in these moms were little kind of womb mates, that they had this little bond, and that they will forever have this bond with this little boy who they may not see in church on Sunday, but hopefully one day will be with forever. So,
A memory from the whole experience that really sticks with me is the night before John Michael was born. And 3 or 4 of us gathered at the hospital with Susan to come and pray with her and just sort of support her. And it was beautiful. We prayed the rosary together. We did some praise and worship quietly. And Susan was just so strong and so, you know, just completely surrendering herself. And I have to say, it really reminded me in a concrete way of the agony in the garden. I know I've made that analogy in my head before about any time a mother is giving birth. She sort of goes through that anxiety beforehand. But with John Michael's situation, even more so, knowing, you know, not knowing how long she was going to have with him, but knowing the beauty that would come from this little life, and being willing to go through that pain and that agony, but knowing that there was this beautiful resurrection on the other end. And I was so grateful to be part of that time.
As a labor and delivery nurse, one of my most vivid memories of John Michael's birth was in the operating room with Susan. He was, when he was born, and all the doctors and residents were rushing around him, and they were trying to kind of make it into a teaching moment, and he wasn't doing well. He was gray, kind of struggling to breathe at that point. And my focus was to get John Michael over to his mom and dad, so that they could have some family bonding. And the thing that struck me most was how poor he looked laying on the baby warmer when he was with the doctors, and then his transformation when he laid up, you know, when I laid him on Susan's chest, and, you know, they were talking to him and touching him, and just so happy to finally meet him. He pinked up and started breathing better, and just started coming alive pretty much right there in front of our eyes.
I remember going into the hospital when he was alive, and as soon as I got in there, I washed my hands and jumped right in line first, because that's what I do with all of the babies, and that's pretty much how it always has worked.
Yeah, honestly, from this whole thing, throughout the whole ordeal and the after, like everything after the healing process and everything, this book really shows how I mean, you can definitely get through it. And I feel like this book, you don't necessarily have to have a child with trisomy 18. It can be any baby, especially any younger child. This book would definitely just show how you can get through it.
So once John Michael was born, and we were all so elated, there was a whole prayer, kind of novena, constant prayer chain going for Susan and John Michael, and it was such a victory, I think, for everybody. I think I was profoundly struck by a few things. The first being that Susan actually invited a few of her friends into the hospital to meet John Michael. And I was very honored to be part of that and to hold him. And I thought to myself, gosh, if I had a child that I knew that would only be on this earth for 48 hours or 72 hours, would I be generous enough to let somebody else hold him? And she was, and it was just an incredible thing to hold such a pure, beautiful child, and such a generous gift on her part.
I would recommend this book to anybody. I have to admit, when Susan first asked me to read it, I was hesitant because she's such a good friend of mine, and I thought, oh no, what if I don't like it? And I mean, as soon as I was, a quarter of the way through the book, I knew that there was, no reason that I should be hesitant because she did such a phenomenal job. It's an easy read, it's inspiring, it's entertaining. Her personality shines forth through it. It reminded me of the book Heaven is for Real. I had really enjoyed that book and found myself inspired and going through it very quickly, and that was how her story was. I think it's a great book, whether if you're going through a hard time, to just give you hope, and even if you're not, it's just an inspiring book that will make you, I think, have a different attitude toward anything that comes your way in life.
I encourage you to come read this book. Join a journey of our family and let God speak to you in His way.